Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Metaphysical Life Podcast, where we talk about all things relating to body, mind, and spirit. I am your host, Nicole. This episode is sponsored by Harrister. They are a storefront company on Amazon, and they are offering 10% off to all of the Metaphysical Life listeners. They have 3 products available: an oil box and an oil shelf to store your essential oils, as well as a scratch map for you travelers out there. If you're interested in any of these products, please visit nicolekaye.com/Harrister for the link and the coupon code. If you'd like to support the show, there are a few ways you can do that. You can subscribe and give it a positive review. You can follow us on social media at the Metaphysical Life Podcast. You can also share an episode on social media and tag us. That would be very helpful. We talk about a lot of books on this podcast. So in January, I will be launching a virtual book club focused on metaphysical topics. So if you're interested, head on over to Instagram and follow metaphysical_book club and stay tuned for the information. If you don't have Instagram and still want to be a part of the book club, just send me an email at nicolekayer, NicoleCayer @outlook.com, and I'll be happy to send you the information. This is the second part of a 2-part series where I share my personal takeaways from Season 1. And this will be the last episode until Season 2 starts on January 11th. Before I share my 7 remaining takeaways, I just want to tell you how grateful I am for you, the listeners. I've had many people approach me, reach out to me to tell me that they heard something on the podcast that they so desperately needed to hear. And so this humbles me and reinforces the idea that we need to talk more about these types of topics. So thank you to the listeners. If you want to give me feedback, send me an email, send me a message on Instagram, and I'd be happy to talk with you. So here are my 7 remaining takeaways from Season 1. Takeaway number 7. It's okay to say no, even to the things we want to do. This was from episode 8 with Paula McDermid, and it comes at the perfect time. I am recording this episode in December, where the holiday season has begun, and there is sometimes this expectation that we must attend all holiday gatherings. And for someone like me, who is an introvert, I have a hard time with this, and I have to be careful about the amount of commitments that I take on. I have had to say no to gatherings, even though I wanted to say yes, mainly because I knew that if I attended, I would lose my mind. At the end of each year, I make a list of the top 5 things I want to focus on in the following year, things that I want to accomplish, goals I want to try to attain, doing things that bring me joy. That way, if I am asked to commit to something, I will confirm it's in alignment with my 5 focused things for the year. If it doesn't align with those 5 things, then I politely decline, and I don't feel guilty about it. The reality is I want to say yes because I want to help people and I like to make people happy, but I cannot do it at the expense of my mental health. Takeaway number 8. Pay attention to your emotional compass. David D'Ambrosio talked about this, and I have to admit it can be challenging to pay attention to your emotions. I think a lot of disagreements happen, feelings are hurt, relationships break down, mainly because of our lack of understanding where our emotions come from. We really have to be present and aware and get out of that autopilot mentality of living to be able to pay attention to our emotional compass. At the beginning of this year, I started to meditate every morning, and it has helped me become more present and aware of my surroundings. It was during one of my morning meditations that I learned one of my key triggers. And when I would be triggered, it would make me feel unworthy and even angry to the point that I would blow up to the person who triggered me to prove that they didn't affect me at all. And so I basically proved myself wrong because I was affected. And so paying attention to your emotional compass is the first step to working on your triggers and doing shadow work, which I will comment on a little later. Takeaway number 9. There is power in breathwork. Breathwork is something new that I've been trying, and Tom Irvine talked about it being a key component in health and wellness. His suggestion was to be aware of your exhalation. So most people focus on how deep they can inhale, but how long you can exhale is also important. And Tom suggests exhaling for as long as possible. I did try this, and I certainly have my work cut out for me. I've also tried other breath work. I've tried the pranayama breath work, where you block one of your nostrils and breathe in and hold, and then block the other nostril and breathe out of the open nostril and repeat. I've tried the Wim Hof method, where you inhale and exhale for a period of time, and then you hold your breath for as long as possible, and then do a final exhale. You can Google these or YouTube these. There's lots of information on breath work. What I've noticed when I do this breath work regularly is that my physical body feels good, like really good. And so this is likely why breath work is recommended to reduce anxiety and depression and for overall health. So there's definitely a power in breath work, and it is something that I'm really going to focus on in the new year and make it part of my daily routine. Takeaway number 10. Beware of self-help books without action. The self-help industry is a $10 billion industry and is expected to grow to $12 billion by 2022. This tells me that there is a lot of people out there who are unhappy, who are trying to improve their lives mentally, physically, and spiritually. But what Peggy and I speak about in this particular episode was the fact that you can read all the books you want, you can write all the checklists, plan all the things, but if you don't take action, it's not going to happen. And I think we've all experienced this. At least I know I have. I've done this with exercise plans, eating plans, side hustle plans, where I do all the research, all the reading, all the list making and the planning, and then for some reason I stop. I didn't take that leap of faith, those small steps of action that are required when we want to help ourselves succeed in whatever our ideal is. Now, there is another aspect to this where I'm guilty of as well, is where we tend to be extreme with things, which is never really sustainable. We go full on 110% and then quit when we burn out or we realize that we're human, we fail, and then we eventually give up. It has taken me a while, but I am learning that extremes are never a good idea, but that small daily actions are key for a sustainable path toward any goal of self-improvement. Takeaway number 11, be spontaneous. I am a creature of habit, a creature of routine. I love my routine, especially my morning routine. And when I can't follow my routine, I am a little off my game. However, I am learning how to adapt to change when necessary. Ben Harris from GoLink Group talks about his story of getting in his car and just going to another city for the day to see where life takes him and who he can meet, and shares a little bit about manifesting a place to stay overnight. This might be a little too spontaneous for my personality, but I do believe setting aside time to be spontaneous is good for our well-being. Being spontaneous gets us out of that autopilot mindset, out of our comfort zone, helps us grow, and like Ben's story, we may run into someone important along the way. Every time my husband and I do something spontaneous, we always return with great memories, laughs, and something to reminisce about in the future. So in the new year, I'm going to try and honor my love for routine as well as allow room for being spontaneous. Takeaway number 12. Take ownership of your shadow, dark and light. First of all, I think Jenniffer had one of the best descriptions of shadow work I have heard yet. Basically, she explains that you know you have a shadow when you feel triggered, angry, annoyed, when you shy away from something, and when you don't own the shadow, then it starts owning you. Sometimes we don't know what our triggers are or why we have them, or we wonder why we shy away from something. So shadow work is integrating aspects of our lives we may have forgotten. Once we understand the root cause and integrate it into our present life, it doesn't affect us in the same way. We own it and we move on. We tend to think of shadow work as something dark, the bad stuff, but it doesn't have to be dark. In fact, it could also be light. I've been working on my shadow for quite some time now, but particularly I've noticed that I've been having a hard time being in the spotlight or accepting recognition. So since my interview with Jenniffer, I've been setting the intention before I go to sleep, before meditation, before a Reiki session, to work on this shadow. And a memory came up from the past that I had totally forgotten about. I was in elementary school and we were sent home with homework to draw a photo. I took the homework home to my babysitter who helped me draw the photo. And by help, I mean she actually drew it herself. Unbeknownst to me, the photo was entered into a draw and it won third prize. There was a lot of recognition. It went into the newspaper. All the while I knew I hadn't drawn the photo, so I didn't deserve the prize or the attention that I was getting. Could this be why I have a hard time with attention? It very well could be. But now that I know I can integrate it, I was a 7-year-old girl who didn't really know what was happening, and I can certainly learn to forgive my 7-year-old self for not coming forward to admit that I hadn't drawn the photo. So take ownership, work on your shadow, integrate it, so that way your shadow doesn't own you. So those are the remaining 7 takeaways that I had from the last 7 interviews from season 1. I hope you enjoyed it. If there's anything that interested you, feel free to go back and give them a listen. Season 2 starts on January 11th, and I can't wait to share some wisdom from more amazing people who are sharing their perspective on how they live a metaphysical life. See you next year.